Hello everyone, and welcome to PORT RIGA webinar, bringing Siebel UI back to life and glory. So I appreciate you taking the time and joining this call to find out what do we have to offer with this Nexus'19 project. My name is Yuris, so I'm running PORT RIGA, and also I am the one who is trying to promote Nexus idea to Siebel community. And together with me I have Oleg Koleskin, who is the author of this library, which allows you to do great stuff with Siebel UI. Before we jump any other demonstration or technical details, I would like to say a couple of words on where we stand in regards to Siebel at PORT RIGA, and also what is the rationale for us jumping into UI topic. At PORT RIGA, we stand by Siebel. Most of our people have Siebel backgrounds, maybe some 40 Siebel consultants we have at this moment. We also have quite a big capability of people doing web development, mobile development, also application integration, all the API stuff, and also a few people doing Salesforce. So basically we are exposed to ideas and the standards which currently exist in the web development world, but also what Siebel competitors are doing in terms of the UI and user experience. Siebel is very close to us, and we love Siebel for its flexibility and various customization options. Basically, there is very little you cannot do when it comes to the business logic configuration and the workflows. We also appreciate all the effort which Oracle is putting into Siebel improvements with innovation packs. Definitely of Open UI was a big step forward, enabling cross-browser experience, but also the stuff which is going on core Siebel engineering processes with WebTool, CI/CD, and Dockers. It really upgrades the developer experience of Siebel and makes our delivery work more efficient. At the same time, we know that Siebel UI could be improved. That's something that our customers are telling us as well, that they expect a little bit more from the UI when it comes to the user experience, and especially if you compare it to the modern web applications. Definitely, we've been doing quite a lot of Siebel UI customization using the jQuery. If you visit Oracle Open World or Siebel roadshows, you see many of the customers presenting their great cases when they have transformed Siebel UI that you can hardly recognize at Siebel. And of course, these demonstrations by Christian Crusade for Christ, or Sleep Numbers, or the stuff that Box Fusion is showing us, or our demonstration of Tele2 cases, they are very inspiring. But somewhere at the back of your mind, you are thinking, why do we have to do so much customization to achieve it? How come it's not available out of the box? And effectively, with this Nexus'19, we are kicking off an initiative trying to solve this UX issue, and this is what we are going to cover in this presentation. Basically, when I kind of trying to consider what have happened to Siebel UI or UX, lately, and how come, when I started working with Siebel some 20 years ago, it was very cool UI. Everybody was happy about that. When high interactivity was introduced and Siebel became available in the browser, it was mind-blowing experience how you can get such degree of interactivity with this web application at that time, with the form applets and with this list applet, with inline editing, with the query supporting, with resizing columns and stuff like that. So when we also were starting some of the custom projects, like in 2010 something, and I was, looking forward to see what custom development can bring in terms of the UX, I was to a large extent disappointed that Siebel was still far away in terms of the interactivity and the stuff you can build with that. Going a couple of years ahead, I saw, I met with one customer who was a bit complaining about Siebel usability issue. And I started to protect Siebel, explaining again all the great stuff you can do. And then he pulled up his Mac computer and opened Safari and said, okay, show me what you can do with Siebel. And yeah, basically it was the point when I understood that Mac computers arrived into enterprise world and having Internet Explorer only is not enough. But again, with Open UI, we fixed it. So again, Open UI went into production. I think one of the objectives was that for the users, not much is going to change, so that they can still use their standard routines in terms of working with Siebel, and they kind of succeeded with that. But at the same time, nothing significantly different in terms of the UX for delivery. But basically, we think that overall the expectations have changed during last several years, and kind of as a reflection of it, we just put a slide together about web evolution, what have happened during the last 5 years since OpenUI was released. I think I will go all the way back to Apple releasing iPhone in 2007, and I think everybody was really impressed to what great UX level Apple put everyone, and how expectations suddenly rised. And actually, it was some time for the web application to catch up with the mobile apps itself. And of course, by the nature, mobile apps are single function application, at least they're supposed to be so. And figuring out great UX, great users flow is a bit easier than you do it with Siebel, with tons of different options where the users can go. But at the same time, it was very close attention to the detail. iOS application should look like, how it should be designed, how navigation should be done. And we see that there is very detailed instructions Oracle puts for the developer so that the experience that users expect from the Apple devices are being met. If we kind of move ahead a little bit, then definitely web community started to catch up in terms of the usability. First major thing that started to happen is introduction of this component-based UI architecture and the framework which supported it. So React maybe was the first one, which is still kind of widely used, who introduced the concept. Vue.js was released again. First Angular JS version JavaScript framework did not support this component-based architecture, but with Angular 2 you got it implemented. And at the same time, we saw these different design systems emerging. And of course, Apple set the trend there, but Google, with their material design, which they open sourced and made publicly available for everyone, moved ahead quite rapidly. In the Salesforce domain, when we start talking about enterprise applications, they introduced Salesforce Lightning design system in 2015. And we believe that this is what happened after OpenUI was released. Somehow we have to catch up with these things. Again, without going any deep into the technology, so if you kind of try to sum up the advantages that these modern web frameworks bring us is basically ability to develop highly interactive web application much faster, and also with a smaller code base we need to write and maintain. So on one hand, it goes all the way to frameworks like again component-based architecture, advanced DOM manipulation, data binding. If you talk about web development, then you usually get other JavaScript libraries and solutions which provide you ready-made mechanism for state management. You can have a backpack which significantly improves productivity of the developer. But then in the combination of these modern frameworks and component-based UI architecture and design system, we have this reusable UI component libraries, which can be public or they can be internal ones which companies develop for their own needs. I will also kind of share with you this resource if you want to learn more about the design system, called design system repository. And so that you have a little glimpse of what it is and what do we usually have in this design system. We can look at some of them. So for example, IBM has their Carbon design system. Typically, you would start with some introduction for whom it is, how it's supposed to be used, what designers are getting out of it, what developers are getting out of it. You're getting guidelines in terms of accessibility, content, colors you need to use, and it can go all the details in terms of, if you talk about navigations and transition duration of this transition, how long is enough, how long is too long, with the easing and other stuff. Definitely you get your fonts, all the typography, icons you should use within the application. And what is important for the developers, you get, again, pre-built components with demonstrations how we can use them in different scenarios, how they can be varied. And of course, we have a sample code base which implements these components in IBM case, which is pretty open in its nature. We have implementation for React, for Angular, and I think also with Vue.js, it's kind of catching up with different examples. Again, I think Salesforce Lightning design system is even more comprehensive. So once again, we're getting this basic stuff like how do you get started the designer's development, where you can get some assets to start working with. Again, quite a lot of the design guidelines, also in terms of layout, how your record should be looking, how list layout should be organized, if you do some boards and cards, how they should be done. Basically, if you are a web designer starting to customize Salesforce UI, you have pretty explicit sets, and once you get familiar with that, building really nice looking interfaces becomes very easy for you. Now we will start demoing you some of the stuff. Basically, for the last 2 months, we've been building some of the prototypes which we'd like to share with you. And again, on one hand, we try to follow all this notion that we take modern frameworks into use. So in our case, it's React and Vue.js. There is some kind of design system on the back which explain what are the navigation principles, how UI should be looking, and this sort of things. And then we have some of the UI components library. So in first example, we'll show you how you can make Siebel look like a Salesforce application. And again, for that, we use Lightning design system. There is UI component library called the Design System React, which basically implements Lightning design system using React. Then we'll show some of the mobile rendering of Siebel Open UI. Again, it's a React framework. It's a material design system by Google, and then Material UI is the UI component library. And then finally, which is sort of our favorite topic, and that's where we put the most of the effort, is something we call Midnight UI. So we build it using Vue.js. Again, we try to follow material design system, and then we use Quasar for that. All right, so first, if I go and see some of the records I have, like traditional Siebel list applets, and I click on View in Lightning UI. So I'm getting pretty much a summary view of this account, ABC constructions, and I have related contexts with that, related opportunity, related cases. I can create some of the tasks for this, probably select also some of the assignees. So basically, instead of shuttle applets, we populate the list of associated contacts with account already here. And then basically we have this activity just created for us. So if I kind of go back, I see more of the contacts. If there is some of the contacts, I can edit them as well. Once again, all these marks that signifying that this is a required field, it is coming from Siebel configuration. I can look at some different style with the opportunity view. But effectively, we can get pretty much the look and feel and the navigation of Salesforce within Siebel. Of course, we're just covering this scenario when we are getting familiar with one of the records, but still we get the idea. And with these reusable components, with proper connection to Siebel, we can further turn Siebel UI into Salesforce UI without actually doing any migrations. I think there is one restrictions in terms of the licensing for this UI. It's the font, so we cannot use the Salesforce font. And that's kind of the last change we made just in the afternoon, and we see that there are some issues with this particular area with the fonts. I log into Siebel Open UI. I have again, list of contacts I rendered. using React and Material UI components. So I can go ahead and edit some of the information about this particular contact. I see some of the list of values which are coming from Siebel. I saved the record, so it's getting changed as well. Then here we also have implemented some of their activities. Here are some of my tasks which I have to do. So if I go in, I see the details for these tasks, and also some of the attendees or the contact people I need to talk to. Again, if I click on the phone number for this particular contact, then I'm getting opened my application for making the calls. Actually, I can make a call. If some of them would have also the email address associated, yeah. So, and then immediately my email client also starts working, and I can send the email to this particular client. Next, I log into Siebel, some of the Siebel UI rendering. Then I go to my service request queue for the mobile. I see some of the service requests I have to work on. I can search for some of the records I have. SR summary, for example. If I go into the details, then I see some more information about this particular service request. I see who is the service request owner and who are technicians assigned. And again, I can add more colleagues to that. And if I am about to change the status, to put it in progress, and also have some more information about the root cause, so I can update this information here. So basically, it is Siebel Open UI. We render it using React and Material UI components library. And if I want to go ahead and create a new service request, so first I can look up an account like this. So if I would have any assets, they would appear here. So for this particular one, I have no assets, so I skip this part. Once again, I provide the details for the service requests, and list of values. They do come from Siebel. Select the due date. I didn't provide the summary, but that's okay. So, and the service request without summary, like this one, it's the one we just created. So that was kind of a bit of a demo of this mobile rendering of Siebel Open UI, and it was scenario with service request. Okay, but I will continue with this Midnight UI that we've been working on. So again, first, what we would have to do, we would have to define a view within the Siebel with all business components, exposed, and applets defined. And then what we do, we start rendering this UI using this material design system and some of the components you see here. So again, it was the same view with account summary. So here we have some basic information about the account, and you can see more details about it. All the associated contact, service requests, and opportunities are here, and I can move them around if I want to, or collapse them if they're just taking too much of my screen. Again, the idea is that by looking at this part, I have a quick overview of what's going on with some of the related or the child business components records I have. And here on the right, I have a sort of timeline, basically all the activity we've been doing with this customer recently. And some of them are for today or kind of further in the future upcoming. I can do kind of a little filtering so that some of the activities I'm not interested in are going away. I can bring them back. Again, if I have too many records, I can do searching within this cards component, or again, if I remove this search within cards, I can also try to filter these records by different fields I have exposed, and again, the set of records is changing. And the basic idea here is that if I want to go and find out more information about this particular record, this right part of the UI is changing slightly, so I see more information about it. I can go ahead and into the edit mode and start updating the information I have. And also here we did this little implementation of drag and drop functionality. So basically here are all addresses I have available for this ABC construction account. I can look at some of the addresses in the USA, and then basically drag this card into this part of the application, and then the address for this contact gets updated and also is a map here. Or I can maybe try something else as well. Or maybe do a little bit of Sweden. It should be somewhere. And basically we can do this sort of things in the UI, and then it's getting saved. Again, if I'm interested more about the opportunities I'm working on, so again, I just click here and get some more details about it. In terms of the interactivity, we just try to make it so that I can update the status of this opportunity by clicking on these steppers, and also as we do changes to Siebel and making the calls to the backend, and then all the configuration we had in Siebel will get fired. So, and here you can see that probability is changing as I'm kind of moving through the stages. Also, I can update it by just clicking somewhere here. And again, if I move through the changes, it also, thanks to this reactivity of the components and with this data binding, all this information about the status is getting updated on the card as well. So once I'm done, and let's say I want to figure out more about, service requests, or I can kind of go here. Again, basic information I have about the service request. If I would have some of the hierarchical pick lists, like for area and sub area, we have configured in Siebel. It's works here as well. We don't have to do a lot of code on the UI layer to achieve it. If we carry all the configuration from Siebel. And if I want to go even further and switch the view, basically kind of drill down in Siebel terms, I can do it as well here. And eventually I go back to summary view, but this is around service request. If I go back, I'm getting to the same screen I used to be before. And what I also wanted to demonstrate is a creation of the activities. For example, from here I can start creating activity. I can give a name to it. I can select date. And also, again, as we had in this Lightning UI demonstration, I can associate some of the contacts with this. And since I started to create this appointment from the opportunity, I already have this opportunity pre-selected for me. Now I just save the record, and I have it here. And again, if I want to modify it, remove some of the participants, change the date, I can do it and just save the record here. So this is, as the night is over, so we can move to the daylight UI if some of the user prefers it. Let's say if I kind of try to delete some of the records here, I'm getting this Siebel interfering and doing some stuff for me, like, do you really want to do that kind of thing? So if I agree, then we successfully delete the record. But now let's move to how this whole thing is made and what is effectively this Nexus'19 all about. The whole goal of this Nexus'19 JavaScript library we have is allow to render your Siebel UI using modern frameworks. So basically, we take everything we have in the Open UI, we have everything we have in the configuration. We take these modern frameworks like React, Vue, or Angular, bring some design system on board and get our users happy. And to achieve that, there is no need to develop any REST services in Siebel. We're not doing anything with the iframes and this sort of stuff. And also the beauty is that we're using pretty much 100% of the Siebel configuration you've been doing with your Siebel solution for many years. Okay, and again, if we kind of step or zoom in a little bit further, how this Open UI is organized. So as some of you know that, first we have the proxy layer, which is responsible for communication with the server. We have some presentation models, with some of the data available and some of the properties and methods as well. And then as we kind of do physical renderer of the UI, we kind of see figures in Siebel tools, and then it automatically gets rendered for us. And Oracle, with Open UI introduction, used the best JavaScript library which was available at that time, jQuery for doing the work. And then you have the different physical renderers on the applet level, on the Vue level, on different layers. And basically the idea with this Nexus'19 that slowly, step by step, we can improving some of the views within Siebel. Definitely we can do it also on the applet level, but from the UX perspective, we believe that it makes sense to do it on the Vue level. And here comes this Nexus'19, which is basically kind of a bridge or as a proxy between this physical renderer we are building using modern frameworks and Siebel presentation model. And then as we kind of go with the Open UI or Siebel UI transformation, we can take and change the look and feel of another Siebel view and then another Siebel view. And also we can kind of mix and match the frameworks if there is a reason for that. Let's say in the demo we had, again, we used React framework to show kind of Lightning UI, and then we used Vue.js framework to do this Midnight UI as well. And talking about the Siebel configuration, definitely, behind the database layer, we have a lot of stuff done as configuration. So everything starting from the UI configuration, views, applets, and whatever comes with applets, like user properties, scripts, stuff. So, we take use of that, so it's still working and it's kicking in. Everything we did on the business logic layer, all the scripting integrations we have developed, and also all the configuration data we set up with validation, list of values, runtime event, state model, visibility, it all works. Scripting, which lives within standard Siebel UI rendering, it's still working with us. Sometimes it's a benefit, sometimes it is not, but still that's the idea. If some of you started to do customization of the UI in a small way or in a big way, like we did for Tele2, then typically, we would start using jQuery for this custom UI rendering. And basically the whole difference with our approach is that instead of the jQuery, we start using this Nexus'19 JavaScript library, which grabs presentation model and allows some API for the modern frameworks, and then build UI, the way we want it to build. Also, in terms of the UI development workflow and what skills we need. So first, once we get UI design from the business analyst or from the UX people, we can start working on two parallel tasks. So one task is definitely to set up all Siebel views and applets so that we have our presentation model ready. And for that, obviously, you need Siebel skills. And then, based on the design, based on the UI component library you're using, you start preparing this UI physical renderer as well. And then, as a next step, with the Nexus'19, you kind of bind together this custom UI renderer and Siebel presentation model using Nexus'19. And to do that job, you would need to have Siebel skills and also web development skills for this person who is doing that. Of course, in the ideal scenario, we have a person who is multi-talented, both in Siebel but also in the web development with one of the frameworks. But still, it's possible to separate the activities that we do as we transition to this new UI. Again, this Nexus'19 is JavaScript library. With Oleg, we just did some calculations, so it's 5 files with approximately 1,300 lines of JavaScript code. We also set up a GitLab instance in our one environment now, where there is all the documentation and source codes, samples, how to start guide, but also the place for everyone to put the issues and questions and tickets, and also fork the code and improve it for us. Now we also, with the help of Oracle, we are doing a review. We have Duncan and his colleagues looking through all the methods and properties we use or we refer in Nexus'19 when it comes to the Open UI. And basically, they are kind of giving the green light or red light on using those. And I think we've done one iteration already and kind of changed the code as well. And hopefully within a few weeks we will finish the second iteration. Again, in our ideal world, we want Siebel community to flourish, and we want that there are many Siebel customers who are continue using Siebel, and if the UX is a main concern that they have, Siebel solving it. And that's why we provide this library free of charge, and eventually if it's going to be okay with Oracle, so we can move it to Oracle support as well. But this is a bit more complicated story as well. Now we have, you might have some questions as well, and maybe we open it up for questions now.
Hi, a question. This is Farouk. On the UI development work, what you showed is there are skill sets required for both Siebel config and as well as the web development part. So what is for a new implementation, what do you think is the kind of percentage split between the two skill set? Is it 50-50 or is it more of Siebel skill sets?
Well, I think it really depends, especially if you're talking about new implementations of Siebel. Definitely there is a pretty large chunk of work you have to do with the Siebel configuration within Siebel tools, so setting up all the business components and views and validations and data and these sort of things, integrations and workflows. And so yeah, and that's a large amount of work. But then when it comes to the UI rendering, again, if you already have sort of design patterns identified for you, if you have certain practices which are established in your company, and you basically know how you should make this UI look and how the navigation should be working, and also you have ready-made components, I think putting this UI layer on top is not much of the deal. Of course, then you have to bind it to the Siebel presentation model, this Nexus'19. But I would say that, would you have any kind of estimate or guess, if you do, configuration on Siebel side and UI?
No, it really depends, like some patterns are chosen framework and
because
yeah. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult to estimate.
Yeah. And it's kind of from our experience. I think the most of the time we spend, building this UI. We have this midnight UI is actually going and figuring out, how do we make this application look, what are the different controls, what are the different kind of layouts we should use, what we can do with these cards, so basically figuring out all these UX components. And once this job is done, implementing it, especially as we take this Quasar component library, which is pretty advanced, it's not much of the deal for us. But definitely, we think you need to have, skills of the web development to come up with the UI like this. And there are several ways how you can get these skills. So most of our people who have Siebel background, so they did some Open UI developer, so you understand JavaScript overall. They have experience with jQuery. And from that, they go on and learn Vue.js, because out of these three frameworks, we find it the easiest one to pick up and learn. And then again, from Vue.js, it's very easy to transition to React. So Angular, it's a bit kind of a beast on its own, but still. And once again, if you have some of the talents within your team who is capable of doing UI part using Angular, and if you have within your company already UI components which you can use, then you just have to use this. Did I answer your question?
Hello, can I ask you some questions?
Sure.
I need some advice from you. How can we make some developments? My question is born from that you didn't show us some part of developing process.
Yeah.
How is it going? How you implement your code to the Siebel Open UI, and have you support hot reloading when developing the application and other stuff? So can you explain some bits of process of developing with, for example, React or Vue.js, if it's possible?
Actually, we are planning a separate webinar for this topic, but answering about hot reloading, hot reloading is not supported because it sounds like Siebel, so it's not supported. We were not able to integrate it with Siebel, so maybe it's still possible, but we don't know how. But actually, the development process is quite modern. So it's framework, it's modern JavaScript where application is built using Webpack. So it's a good developer experience.
But I think it's definitely you were looking for more detailed answer on this one, and maybe I will just jump quickly through the rest of the slide because I think we're addressing these topics as well there. Yep. So about the next steps. So what we find out that definitely it's not like a big bang when you just change your Siebel UI overnight. So it is kind of a journey how you could turn Siebel into this most modern, most comprehensive web application, providing the experience your users are really looking for. I think at the first step, you kind of really get familiar with this Nexus'19. Then it would be a good idea just to start working on the single view or a single use case for your business people, just to see what actually it is possible to achieve within your particular Siebel implementation, and again, what users would tell about that, and also what kind of task completion time reduction you can get with these modernized user flows within Siebel. And I think if you have this premise that everybody is okay with transforming Siebel UI into big way, it is important that you're not just taking another view in place and start kind of redesigning it and discussing it with the users and building it, and then another one. I think it's much safer approach to scale this transformation with with this design system. And let's say when we've been building this UI for Tele2 for this call center UI called Ouch, it was kind of showed in some of the Oracle events as well. It was kind of designed to make sure that it is very easy and efficient to handle the calls from the residential customers, which have very few phone numbers, lots of assets, very few invoices, and it was kind of optimized for that. Then when we had to take on the business accounts, and as the business accounts, they might have a lot of subscription, a lot of services, many orders, many service requests. Then this UI was not really optimized for that, and kind of changing it on the fly was pretty difficult stuff. And therefore we believe like if you come up with a design system, if you look at your most complicated use cases and figure out what are going to be your layout patterns, navigation patterns within kind of Siebel Open UI, then you can start rebuilding these scenarios with using this design system and eventually modify all the Siebel that you need. And as a first step, on this Nexus site, you have a way to request free access for this Nexus'19 GitLab code. So we give you this access. You have access to all the documentation with the source code, with setup guides and stuff like that. So you get yourself started. You repeat some of the samples we have developed there as well. Then you try to use Nexus'19 in your own environment and implement very simple POCs with your configuration, because that's where the most fun starts and something that looks familiar to you and for your users. Again, for the Siebel customers, we provide like 40 hours of the free support from IDEA PORT RIGA side. So if you have like more detailed question on how to get started or how do we actually build UI with these POCs, we will be happy to help you with that. If you are an integrator, make sure that you sign in with one of your customer accounts and you will get it through anyway. But again, once you kind of get familiar with the solution, once you are confident that this could be an option to upgrade the user experience of your Siebel application, we can run the demo of this Midnight UI that we shown with the business to see them what is possible, and then you move to the next step when you have more time allocated to play with these UX projects or tasks, and then you can take one use case or one view and start changing it with your users and with your UX people. And again, we kind of planned these 2 more seminars. So one is in 1 month from now. It's kind of scaling Siebel UI implementation with design systems. When we go into through the details of these 2 steps, like what do we need to do, whom we have to talk to, what kind of skills we need to have on the board, and also Oleg is going to be on the vacation in the middle of March, so we'll run the developer-oriented webinar, like building Midnight UI with Nexus'19, and there we will cover pretty much the whole development process, how do you actually do things, and share with you some tips and tricks. So these are going to be like public events. But again, if you are kind of a Siebel customer and you want to give it a try, so you don't have to wait for 1 month, but you can use these support hours from our side, and we'll go with your developers through the process itself. Okay, I think with that, we've done talking on our own behalf. John, do you want to say a few words or?
Hi, Juris. Thank you for the presentation. It's really good. Got to know a lot of things that what we can do in Siebel with the new framework. One question we have at this point of time is it possible to share the theme or the library that you developed for the Midnight theme to us, for example, so that we can deploy and see how it looks? Is that something possible?
I think we can discuss it, definitely. Again, it's not like part of the GitLab code, because that's basically the bridge or this Nexus'19 wrapper, which is available there. But I think if you kind of drop me an email, then we will discuss how we can get started. Because, effectively, this Midnight UI that you have seen, we agree that it looks kind of impressive for now, and it definitely shows like how different Siebel UI can look like if you get some design systems and some other frameworks into the game. But still, we are not like very certain about task completion times. Basically, does it really make the users more productive with this kind of UI. And just taking this framework or this code and putting into Siebel and saying, hey, it looks great, let's start kind of building it further. I think it's not that simple, because we have to do some of the fine-tuning, some of the definition of these user flows, and how does it actually fit with that. Because in the UX world, you have this kind of horror stories that UI designers coming into enterprise application, in the call center, making it look really nice, putting a lot of white space. It looks kind of easier and less crowded and stuff. But then when they go live, suddenly, call handling time goes through the roof. And, definitely business is absolutely upset about this outcome. We have users who are really disappointed as well, because, maybe part of the compensation is tied to the amount of calls they're servicing. And basically you get ruined with this whole approach. So, we believe that to impress the users, or just to show them, what is the possible, we can definitely, show this midnight UI, and we will publish it on the YouTube as well. So we'll make kind of another trailer out of it. But then I would be kind of careful with applying it in your system. So I would rather, do small POC in your particular use cases, figure out how things are done in your particular environment, and what would be the navigation flows and stuff. Because again, here we take material design principles, we take Quasar component library, and we use Vue.js to build the rest of it, and with Nexus we bind to Siebel presentation model. So I mean, yes, we can share, but I think the approach should be kind of different. But we can obviously can discuss more with you offline.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. John, any comments from you or Duncan or Chandan or?
Hi, Juris. Hi, Oleg. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes.
No, I put a comment in the group, and again, just to reiterate that, it's great to see this innovative work that you've done, and really appreciate you taking the time to share that. And just for the benefit of everyone else on this call, we are working closely with your team to see how we can support you with this, and just make it as easy as possible for other customers to do this if that's the way they want to go with the user experience on top of Siebel. So we'll continue to do that, continue to iron out a few things and work together. And I just said, it'd be great to follow this up with some more web sessions, and then I saw that you'd actually scheduled a couple already.
Yeah.
So that's you're already one step ahead of me there. So I think that'd be fantastic. My final question in the chat was that I saw you showing mobile demo.
Yeah.
Is that because it's something that you've heard more from the customers you speak to, that they want mobile, and this type of UX is better for smartphone than desktop, for example? Okay,
but together with Sofigate, we are working with the Konecranes, which a global company, and they use field service, and I think there are about 5,000 field technicians deployed globally across the globe. Europe, US, Australia, China, pretty much everywhere, Africa as well. And basically, when they kind of struggle to take OpenUI disconnected mode or mobile view, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we did the POC when we built an application which is talking to Siebel through the REST middleware. Basically, we had this Java application written which is able to talk to Siebel backend using a Java component, Enterprise Java Beans, JCA adapter, and then on the other side, it would provide the REST interface to the mobile application to consume. And also following this scenario, and that's how they built the application. So first it was done using Ionic UI or Ionic framework for the mobile. Then we switched to Xamarin because they needed to have support on the Windows phones. And I think one of the criteria for going for the separate mobile application is offline functionality. And I think as we talked with Mikko, I think they will continue to use the model when for the offline functionality you have a dedicated mobile app which talks to Siebel through the REST services. And again, now as they do the upgrade, they will take into the use Siebel REST services instead of this custom solution. But at the same time, they say that many technicians, and also when I was visiting technicians of the Konecranes, they would just want to get familiar with some of the data that customer already have in Siebel. And basically this functionality is not available in the application. So either they would just have to do some strange thing in this application to get hacked around and get the data they want to, or they go into Siebel. And as neither of the option is a good one, we just decided that making the mobile rendering of OpenUI for this particular use case, when a technician can go into Siebel through his mobile, see the client he has to visit on, see all the assets, all the service history, all the work he needs to perform in read-only mode. That would be beneficial for the users. A big deal actually. But again, implementing this read-only views, it's pretty straightforward because there is not much of the logic involved and things like that. So I think that's scenario we want to follow. I don't know if there are any other cases or any other customers who do that. But usually if we get to this model that people need the mobile application to work with Siebel, then how do you make it? Either you take what comes with the Siebel UI, or you build separated application which talk to Siebel through the REST services. Also, we've been building some of the planning board UI within Siebel Open UI, and we were embedding it into Siebel UI through the iframe, and then we would talk to Siebel backend through the REST services. But also, it is quite a complicated solution. The whole architecture is getting a bit tricky. Then you have to worry about visibility on the different layers. You have to worry about identification, how you do that. So basically, I think with this Nexus'19 we can natively render UI using modern frameworks and design system within Siebel Open UI without any additional layers of architecture. It's a much better approach compared to what we used to employ before. So that's why we're excited about it as well. It was long answer to your question, John.
No problem, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I think the time is pretty much over. If you have any other question, please we can stay as long as you need. But for the rest of the people, again, go ahead, get started with Nexus'19. We will support you in all the way we can. Then there will be more, seminars, webinars coming up, and you can always reach us at this nexus19.ipr.lv, which is short for idea PORT RIGA LV, or go to this site and we will keep it updating with the most relevant information. Now it leads to this webinar sign up form.
Someone had a question of, is the recording for this webinar going to be sent out?
We will publish a recording of this webinar, but also, we'll try to make shorter videos for each of the section, so that it's would be easier for you to play afterwards, and also, to share with some of your users if you feel like doing so. Let's say all the scenarios, like how do we do things in the mobile, how we Salesforce Siebel UI or do this Midnight UI. So we will put that on the YouTube as a separate demos as well.
Can you ship the presentation file too?
Yes, I will ship a PowerPoint file to all of you after the call.
So thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Good. Well, thank you all. So it was, first time we kind of had this sort of webinar. I think in Idea PORT RIGA Live, so like 11 years, we haven't done it before. And we are excited to continue with you. And I think, UX topic is of importance. And, my personal internal goal is to, whenever I feel or face a Siebel customer who's complaining about UX, like we have a couple of those, just show them in the face that with some effort you can turn Siebel into whatever UX experience you want to. We can do even better than Salesforce Lightning UI if it's really needed, as long as you again follow certain principles with the design system, with the user-centric design and modern frameworks. And with Siebel UI you can live for another 25 years or something. Thank you. I think with that we finish today's webinar. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.